Hello, this is XP Scaling, and today I'm going to be showing you the feats of Gaia the Superhuman Soldier. And I'm gonna be honest, this will probably be one of part two, even though part two will come much later down in the line. But the main reason why for that is because Gaia, in the series he doesn't really get that many good feats, and at this fight in the series, this is like the only good showing he's gonna have for like quite a long time. Some of his feats a little later, little anti-feats. So today we're mainly just gonna, be covering what Gaia, the superhuman soldier, can do. So, quickly, Gaia, as his origin, his real name is Nomura, but the reason why he became who he is, Gaia, is because, he was a mercenary back in Vietnam, and it was his first time, experiencing war. He was a young lad. He was in war, having a great time, using the big guns. And then one day, after killing some guys, he gets captured and he was sentenced to be executed. So, for his execution, they was going to have over about 100, enemy soldiers, 100 guys shoot him. But he miraculously survived that day. And, he, for what he explains, he states, it was then, for some reason, an incredible strength surged through my body. Call it bloodthirst or murderous intent, it doesn't make a difference. Human beings have a sense for when they are about to be struck, and it was then that sense that I honed through my experience as a soldier, that went into overdrive as 100 bullets were about to strike me. And, it was at that moment where, as you could see here, they're all surprised, like, whoa, how did he even survive? Well, I guess he's not dead after all. We'll keep him alive for a little longer. And it was due to him, honing that sense of danger that he ended up honing it to the point where he's able to use it in combat and able to perceive and understand, his enemies' attacks and movement patterns. Now, as to why he's Gaia, it turns out, they give an example in the manga. It turns out it's split personality disorder, as, they use this guy, Billy. I'm not going to even attempt to say his last name. But, as an example, it turns out this guy has, a few personalities of, himself. But, we're going to be covering, the Gaia personality of Nomura, seen as it's Gaia who has like a lot of feats, even though they're technically the same person. So, ironically, Gaia, he leads, an elite squad of, top soldiers, I guess, in America, explained in the series. But surprisingly, he's the weakest, as Nomura. But, this was when he had gotten captured. Baki had completely defeated the whole squad, and boom, Gaia woke up, dug himself out, and, declared, I am Gaia. And Baki at this moment, he didn't think of Nomura as anything dangerous, went into attack, and Gaia completely finessed all his attacks, all his attempts. And, this was before his adrenaline boost really started to, kick in. And he states, wow, you're going to be kind of excited. Let's really get the adrenaline flowing now. And as you can see here, to a certain extent, he is able to control the flow of his adrenaline, as he's really, making it course through his body. But if we take into account that this was before his adrenaline boost, this should be, very considerable, as he was able to dodge Baki's attacks. Baki at this point is well above Yuri the boxer. If we take into account what Baki said much earlier in the series, if you've seen my other videos, Baki at this point should be 5 times faster than Yuri. Yuri, who's a pro boxer, and pro boxers in terms of speed, should punch at 32 miles per hour. Baki's 5 times faster than that. So Baki, in terms of reaction and combat speed, would be able to perceive and, react to 100, miles of at least 100. Speeds up to 160 miles per hour. Oh my God. And you have Guy here effortlessly, dodging finessing and, perceiving his attacks. And this was before he got serious. And when his adrenaline, really did start to, course through his body, Baki went in for an attack. He was just like, yeah, I got you. I was just like, oh, really? And completely threw him like a stone. He skipped him like if he was a stone across water. He did it to an extent to where he bounced off the water at least 7 times. Now, you take that into an account when, you grab a stone and just skip it across water. That should be impressive. And I found an equation here, which I had to convert. I'm not going to lie. It's not real pretty the way I converted it. So I'm sorry if there's any math people out there who, they're good at math. If they get annoyed by that, I'm real sorry. I did the best I could. Right? So this is what the equation would look like if I, threw in the numbers correctly. I did the best I could. So for CL being 176 pounds for Baki's weight, P being, the density of water being 0.969 cubic centimeters, U to the second power being the impact velocity, 1 being, the standard impact velocity that you would use for a stone in this regular equation. S being the wetted area for at least the lake that he was in. If we take the length, we don't get like a width, but I had to, use what I had. In the manga, the lake is stated to be at least 10 meters in length. We say the area, the width is at least 10 meters by 10 meters. The area would be 100. And, other math later, I end up getting 38 for the wetted area. For A, we get instantaneous attack angle. That would be 20 degrees. And then for B, we get instantaneous course angle, which would be 140 degrees. And this is what the equation would look like, but I'm not going to lie. I didn't do a good job conveying on, how it would look. Sorry, guys. So to any math people who understand how this is supposed to look, I'm sorry. But essentially, right, if you get this number, put it in a calculator, and, hopefully I didn't screw it up too much. In terms of force that was generated, you'd get 50,808,320 pounds of force exerted. Or in terms of tons, it would at least be 25,404.6 tons of force released. That guy released in that throw when he threw Baki. So in terms of like attack potency, that's at least small town to town ranges of, power or, attack potency that he released. And then, right after that, he proceeds to jump over this like 10-meter long lake, slight running start, lands right in front of Baki. He's just like, and then states to flex, right? To flex in front of Baki. He's just like, if I felt like it, I could break every world record without even breaking a sweat. And at this point, it's more than likely he could. And then, as another feat of strength, he proceeds to then, pick up Baki and he slams him into the floor. But he gives out 2 statements that I did cover. The first statement being, let's see what happens when I slam your 80-kilo body, at the ground at top speed. And then, he states, wow, when I threw you there, it was similar to falling off the 7th floor. So, if we take into account if he were to fall off the, 7th floor of a building, that would be at least a 90 feet fall in the air. Baki weighs 80 kilograms. So, that would mean Baki hit the floor with at least 21,781.87 joules of force. So that would legit be the equivalent of you actually falling on pavement if you were to fall off the 7th floor. But, I wanted to take it a little further and say, he fell at top speed. And since he did throw him at a horizontal level, the top speed that you could get, let's say if you was, free falling, out of a plane, would be at least 120 miles per hour. So that would mean Gaia was able to throw Baki with enough force to simulate him falling at a height of at least 450 meters or, in terms of feet for Americans, like me, 1,500 feet. And, if you were to fall from that height and hit the floor, you generate a force of at least 357,210 joules of force, and that would like be wall level. Now, in terms of wall level, what I mean is like, it's not like you're gonna punch a hole, your fist through a wall. What I mean is, you punch like the entire wall of like a section of like a small building out. So like, let's say you're in your room, you punch a wall, boom, the wall's gone. Like if it was never there. That's the amount of force he was able to exert. But then, he ends up taking it a step further, and he slams Baki with enough force to make him bounce off a lake. The same lake he jumped over. And, I actually had to, do some research. When he stated, water changes into something harder than concrete, turns out that's actually kind of false. But when you consider the fact that he threw him with enough force to not just slam him into the water, but to bounce, I had to use a little bit of the equation that I showed you guys earlier to figure out, how much force would be needed. And, in terms of force, that would still be within, multi-city block level to at least small town ranges of, attack potency. So that would be anywhere between, 100 to 1,000 tons, or 1,000 tons to 5,800 tons of force exerted. So in terms of strength, we're looking at least, bare minimum, like, wall level to small to, town level ranges of attack potency. So that should be his, ranges of strength. But now let's get onto his speed. So, as for speed, as I mentioned earlier, this was before Baki got his endorphin boost, and this was before, super casually Gaia did this. He was able to perceive Baki, who should at least be subsonic ranges of speed. So that would look like at least 76.7 miles per hour, or being able to react up to a maximum speed of 383.6 miles per hour. But like, you could take it a lot further, because while I mentioned up earlier, he was able to, perceive bullets. And he did this, while he was blindfolded and tied up. So that should honestly, be very considerable. And as he states here, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to even attempt to say that word. But, he states that it was due to his lust for danger that he was allowed to perceive the danger. So you could take it as a few ways. He was blindfolded, tied up, and shot at, and he survived. So if we take that into an account, he would technically have to be able to perform subsonic ranges of speed, meaning that he would be able to move and react to Mach 1.1 or Mach 2.5, or at least speeds of 850 miles per hour to speeds at his maximum, I am going to state 1,854 miles per hour. Though I am going to say this should be like a high ball for him. It should like still be a valid one, though I would knock it up to him being the more danger he's facing, the more his adrenaline is released, and therefore he's able to perceive, react, and combat higher levels of speed, in a fight. So next, I'm going to move quickly onto his arsenal and skills. So, as Nomura, who is Gaia, he's shown to hide pelts of acid in his mouth. And, even though he does this as Nomura, this should still be within the arsenal of Gaia, as he hides them in his mouth. He's also shown to be an expert at using the environment around him. And what I mean, like, the environment, like, he will use anything that he finds as a weapon. Like, later on in the series, he takes he takes sand, right, that has teeth in it, and he throws it at an opponent. Now, of course, normally if you throw dirt at someone, they're gonna be like, "What? Why are you throwing dirt at me?" But when you consider how hard he's able to throw Baki, that's not dirt no more. In a way, or to an extent, it's kind of like throwing bullets at somebody. He's, also shown to have extremely good, hardcore parkour climbing skills. And something that he is a practitioner of is trying to use psychological warfare on somebody. As he did this to Baki to an extent to where Baki believed that the environment was going to fight him and his own body was going to fight him. And, he's saying, like, come on, aren't you supposed to be the ogre's son? Why would you really try to fight me? Don't you know that the environment is my ally as well? Like, you're not going to know your full potential, blah, blah, blah. He really does talk him down. And, he talked him down to the point where he manages to grab a bamboo leaf. Oh my goodness. Sorry guys if I, mispronounced anything, right? Cuts him up and like completely breaks his will and just yells at him, like gets him breaks his spirit and will to fight. And if we go off in terms of skill real quick, right? As a for using psychological warfare, he was able to talk down the guy who wanted to fight him and defeat him in order to get stronger. So at least in terms of psychological warfare, he's pretty good. Now in terms of skill, Gaia, compared to the rest of his group, he is the best. And if we exclude Gaia and just have Nomura in there, him and his squad were able to take on at least 400, highly trained soldiers, all having, top of the line equipment. As you can see here, this is the destruction that they left behind when they were armed with like at least 50 tanks, 50 vehicles of each specific sort and, use. And they did this all unarmed. Please note, like they defeated 400 men unarmed. They didn't even see it coming. Like this guy here, he says, "Are you trying to tell me that all 5 men destroyed all this without the use of firearms?" And this guy has to, say, "Yeah, sir, we lost. There's nothing we could have done." And then, if you take on top of that each member in the elite squad has their own fighting style, and they're still considered below Gaia in terms of skill. Like, that should be very impressive for, Gaia in terms of fighting and grappling capability. And finally, I am going to cover his, his ability to perceive danger. And, in a way, to an extent, he's able to predict the movements of his opponent. It's almost like a precog, though it should scale to people who are below him, as at this point in time, he's predicting Baki, right? But he states, or it's shown in the manga, that like as Baki is adapting to him, he was able to overcome this. So that should mean that if you are, above Gaia in terms of speed, or if you're relative to him, he would honestly he wouldn't be able to predict you. Or if you are relative to him, he's going to have a much more difficult time doing so. As, he sees, Baki's attacks, but like Baki at this point, he's adapting to this. So due to that, if you're able to improve and like understand how Gaia fights, you'll be able to adapt and overcome this. Oh, sorry. And another thing is Gaia, he's a genius fighter. He understands how, his opponents work, right? He was able to see how Baki was adapting. It was just like, oh, okay. So he's adapting to my precog. So I understand, like, he was able to break down and articulate how it went. He was just like, okay, I think I know what's going on. There have been times when, boxers have been knocked out, but, they still continue to fight. So his body's just, simply recalling all the practice and the fights he's been through. But thanks to that, both his fighting spirit and his will came back, meaning that he is in full control again, and that means there is no longer any danger. There it is. And it was actually due to that he was able to perceive Baki's attack before, he performed it. And, finally, arguably, Gaia's most, I guess, useful, it's kind of weird. His most useful attack, which would be, his ability to scream, though he did home. This is gonna sound a little weird, but he did home his ability to breathe, thanks to some yoga training that he did to his lungs. He buried his head underground for at least 30 minutes and was able to hold his breath. So because of that, he, sorry, is able to exert his lungs, and did this to paralyze and knock out two guys. And even just by like a regular scream, he was able to stun Baki and everybody there. Baki was just like, whoa, how the heck did you scream so loud, bro? And guys just there like, dang, I didn't want to do this, but seems like I'm gonna have to use it now. Sucked up all the air he could, had his like lungs expand to the max, right? And as you can see here, screamed with like enough force, right, to completely knock out these two guys. Baki, even though he was blocking, was still pushed back, and it looks like a small explosion. Like you could see the effect that it had like in the small little like forest that it was in, right? The fish, the birds, the bugs. This guy right here, he was fortunate enough to block his ears, but these two guys, they're like completely just knocked down. Baki, the effect that it has on him is like his entire vision is distorted. So, as you could see, he knocked out two of the guys there. So, for example, anything over 150 decibels, right, is, considered to be able to, hurt your eardrums or, burst your eardrums. At, 158 decibels, you could knock somebody out. And if you really put it up there at 200 decibels, you could actually kill somebody. So his scream for Gaia, right, you could potentially say it was at 200 decibels, though I'd be more safe to say that it's at 185 to potentially 190. And, finally, Gaia's skills as a survivalist, as he doesn't believe in using weapons or even tools. He uses his bare hands or just the environment. And as terms as an environmental warfare, he was stated at one point to be able to survive a nuclear blast by a guy who managed to, survive Gaia, right? Though I am going to knock this up as, like, he's not going to survive it, obviously. Like, that's not his durability. But it's more like, oh, if you dropped a nuclear bomb within the area, he'd more than likely be able to survive. But, like, not due to sheer resistance, but due to his skills and, survivalist instincts. Now, finally, if you noticed, I haven't covered his durability. And the main reason why is I wanted to recap a little, because Guy's durability, it's kind of like a glass cannon, I'm going to be honest. Like, if he exerts himself a lot, like, the moment he starts, like, I guess, exert himself and really starts to take damage back, he's going to be put on, like, a time clock, because, like, at one point, all the damage he has will stack up on him, and, he's going to reach his limit. And if you go off the fact that he does, to an extent, can release all the adrenaline he wants in his body, in real life, even though, real life shouldn't apply to this story, but, like, to an extent, they do try to add some real life issues, or at least real life explanations. When you use adrenaline, that uses up a lot of your body's energy. And in the fight with Baki states, oh, wow, look at your tiny little body and look at my body. My body's well developed, unlike yours. So Gaia, he was over-reliant on his adrenaline to, carry him through fights and, through most battles, which, he kind of earned the right to. But it ended up being due to his over-reliance on adrenaline that he ends up losing, as, he ends up taking too much damage. His body's not able to produce, enough adrenaline to keep him going, or, to keep him at his peak. And this shows at one point when, he tries to punch Baki in the stomach, and Baki just, flexes and completely breaks his wrist, because, he's not able to keep outputting a constant supply of adrenaline to his body. So, as it goes for Gaia, if we put him at his peak, right, like in the beginning of the fight, as to what he's shown to be able to output in terms of, attack potency when his, adrenaline's running at full rush, at full potency, right? He should be, at these small town to town ranges of power, though I'd say on average, like as the fight were to drag on, I'd say he went from that to at least multi-city block to, large building level, right? And then, as for speed, he should at least be within the subsonic, right? So I'd say, because he's consistently shown to be faster than Baki. So in the subsonic ranges, he should have, at least good reaction and, combat speed. Though, like, if you really wanted to highball him, you could say he's within the, supersonic ranges of speed, as the more danger he perceives and the more adrenaline his body's able to produce, he should be able to, react to those, Mach point 2.5 ranges of speed, or like, for Americans like me, 1,854 miles per hour in terms of, reaction and combat speed, though that should be, within the limit of what his adrenaline can do, as, he can't produce, say, an overabundance of adrenaline due to his body. And even if he does, it's only for like a short amount of time. Like, it's going to be for like a small burst of a fight, not for like an extended drawn out fight, which is what happened to Baki, and he ended up losing. So that should cover it for, Gaia. I'm going to be honest, he doesn't really get any more good feats after this, so it'll be quite a while till he gets, another video or, a part 2 to this, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and until then, have a nice one. Peace.